Hello, my name is Anthony Ebert, and I'm going to be going through the Week 7 assignment, Model Critical Thinking. The strategy that I'm going to be using is Think Aloud, and basically I'm just going to be working through the problem in front of me, and then I'm going to explain my thought process and how do I get the conclusions that I have. This is from a presenter that came and talked to the teachers at my school last month. This is one of the kind of activities he brought forward for us to try and figure out as a challenge. So here, our task is to identify 3 critical attributes of the Thorgs. Below, consider both the similarities of the creatures in the example column and the differences between the examples and non-examples in the columns. So here, basically what you have to do is figure out what separates the Thorgs from the Not Thorgs. Some assumptions that I have are obviously, hopefully, that there's 3 different critical attributes I can identify. I'm assuming that they're physical and that they're visible. I will be able to find them. Yeah, so I'm making the assumption that there are 3 distinct attributes that separate these. And my process behind this is basically, right, there's 3 kind of different ways or 3 branches of critical thinking that you could go about this, right? You could look at all of the Thorgs and see what similarities, like, because the attributes will separate the Thorgs, which means that they have to have these attributes in order to be considered a Thorg, right? If I look at all of the Thorgs, just the 4 Thorgs that I have, and figure out like 3 things that they share in common, right? That could help me figure out what those 3 critical attributes are, right? You can do where you compare the Thorgs to the not Thorgs, right? What everybody's probably going to do, right? Comparing between the 2, see what the Thorgs have that the not Thorgs don't have. And then the last one would be figuring out what the not Thorgs have that the Thorgs don't have, right? Because it goes both ways, right? Maybe they're lacking the critical attribute, and it's not that they have it, they just lack that, and that's what makes them a Thorg versus a not Thorg. So this was a fun yet frustrating exercise that was given to us. Right, because looking at these creatures, right, they're all different. My first thought was to start counting fingers, right? You have the guy on the top right here. He's got 3 fingers, 2 and an elbow, maybe? It kind of looks like an elbow. This guy's got 4 and 3, so my first thought was like maybe, odd number fingers, even number fingers. But that doesn't work because, 3 fingers right here. And I thought maybe it was teeth because these guys all have 2 teeth on the top. But if you look further on, right, 3 teeth, 2 on the bottom. These guys just don't even know if you can call those teeth right here on the spider guy. But yeah, so my first thought process was to start comparing the 2, just looking at some, critical features or distinct features about them, right? Nostrils, not really any nostrils over here. Eyebrows, right? You have eyebrows there. Wings, right? None of those guys have wings. So comparing the 2 made things really difficult, right? I wasn't able to, right off the bat, figure out what was different. And so the first step that actually got me some progress was looking at just the Thorgs themselves, figuring out what traits they shared, right? And then comparing it to the non-examples of the not Thorgs to verify that the trait I had identified is actually something that makes them distinct, right? So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4 limbs, 1, 2, 3, 4 limbs, 1, 2, 3, 4 limbs, 1, 2, 3. That was the first thing I figured out, was that a example of the Thorgs is that every single character on this side has 4 limbs, while every character on this side has varying numbers, right? 2, I don't even know what you call those. 2 here, and then 6 here. That was the first characteristic I figured out. And then so working through it, I looked for maybe the oblong bodies, but then this guy is oblong. Maybe that they have fat butts, right? These guys all kind of have bigger bottom sections. But you could find that as a bigger bottom section, right? So the next one that I figured out was that everybody, a Thorg is always happy, right? Every single creature here is making a smiling expression. So right, this guy's smiling, smiling, smiling. This guy's more grimacing, and then these guys kind of lack facial features. The only reason this is more of a grimace is just because his eyebrows look so angry. Um, but yeah, so we figured out these guys are smiling, and then that's as far as I made it by myself. I, for the life of me, could not figure out what the third and final critical attribute was. I tried every possible thing I could think of: eye shape, feet shape, toes, teeth. Maybe that they have one eye, but these guys have two eyes. These guys have wings, and I could not figure it out. So I actually gave this to each of my classes, and I had them collaborate with one another to try and figure out the same thing. You can see here I wrote my original answers, but I blacked them out so that the students would have to start from scratch, and I can make sure that they at least found the same two that I did, so I knew that they were on the right track and they were doing the right thing. And then I allowed them to collaborate with one another to try and figure out. And it was interesting to hear one kid be like, I feel this way, or like this could be a possibility, and then the other kid's like, no, 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 because this one exception. Um, so it was interesting to hear that. Uh, Turns out nobody could figure it out. I gave it to all the teachers in my department, all the students I had. Um, the working theory was that there was no third critical attribute, and that uh, the whole task was just to get you to deep dive into the critical thinking process and thinking things out and looking at things in different ways and trying to think outside the box. It actually got to the point where one of my students got fed up, and he emailed the publisher of the book, who emailed the author of the book, who responded with the answers to it. It turns out that there is a third answer, and the third answer is that the Thorgs are hairless. And this was interesting because this is one of those non-examples, right? Or these guys all don't have hair, and you have one character over here that does have hair, right? So not Thorgs can be hairy, but Thorgs cannot. So this was really stumped everybody. Nobody could figure it out. But I found it a very useful way of modeling critical thinking, right? I could think out loud with the kids. I could show them what I was doing. I could, draw stuff, draw characteristics. So yeah, it was an enlightening yet frustrating time that I really enjoyed. But I think the thinking out loud technique is really useful. It's something that I use a lot in class. Uh, Whenever I do anything, a lot of these my students have never done a lot of the topics or problems that we talk about in class. This last week I went over chemical reactions and how to balance them. Most of the kids don't know how to do that. They've never done that before, and so even if you just like tell them like the process, like you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. I find it's a lot more helpful if I do one on the board. Like they just watch me, and every thought that I have, every step that I take, I say it out loud, and I write it down. Right? Oh, I gotta split the equation in half, so I have my reactants and I have my products, and I draw a big line down the middle. I'm like, I gotta list out my elements on this side, so I list them out. I gotta list out my elements on this side, and I list them out, and then I'm like, now I need to make sure that all my elements are there and that they match. I confirm that, and then I count them up on the left side, count them up on the right side. Do those match? No. And then I go back to the equation. I start adding coefficients and you know trying to balance the equation. I think that's really helpful for students to see the step by step by step process. So usually with everything that I teach, I do at least one or two think alouds just so students can see me do it, because it is one of those things where it's like monkey see, monkey do, right? If they see you do it, it gets easier for them to do it. So rather than just explaining how it's done, actually doing it in front of them is something I've found to be very beneficial. And it's interesting because it's actually, the past assignments where we've done videos where we did the problems in the workbook, were thinking aloud. I mean, we were demonstrating our critical thinking. That was the whole objective of them. Was talking through our thought process as we went through each of the questions and how we got to the results we did. So it's kind of cool to like not know the formal name or like that I was even doing this think aloud strategy, but then to learn about it later and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, and kind of learn more about it has been really helpful. Like the different ways it can be used to build up the students' understanding and learning. So it's really cool to have something that I've kind of done in the past and have some way to build on it in the future. So this is Thorgs versus Not Thorgs. If you want to frustrate people, highly recommend giving them this picture. You can't find it anywhere online, which is the most frustrating thing ever, because there's no answers in the book, there's no answers online, which is why my student had to email the publisher, to email the author, to email them back. But yeah, so 4 limbs, smiling and hairless, which was a spiritual journey. This took me a month and a half to finally get the answers to. Yep. And that is my Think Aloud demonstration on critical thinking. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have a nice day.